And welcome back to MSI 2022, the State Farm Analyst Desk after T1 secured the first win of the tournament. I'm once again joined by Jett and Guldborg, and for the briefest of moments, I started to believe that Mark Ruffalo was spamming Saigon Buffaloes. Shogun dumpstering lane, I think, is a defendable statement that Tristana Alistar. Look, it was an exciting start. Obviously, the CS and the gold experience wasn't necessarily hugely in the advantage of Saigon Buffaloes, but it did look good, and that Tristana was 5-2 at one point.
Yeah, I actually think that when I saw the Alistar get locked in on 4 and I see it into Lucian Nami, I'm like, you really don't want a good time, do you? The only way you win this lane is that you flash in level 1 as he did, because you're not a champion as Alistar level 1. Lucian Nami takes completely over, and Saigon Buffalo, they does exactly what's on theme for this team, which is literally just throw everything at the wall once again and just move ahead.
Yeah, I like the mindset of the Buffalo that they're willing to take risks, burning all of their cooldowns and summoner spells to level 1. Unfortunately, the wave actually gets put in a bad spot here. So once Lucian does come back to lane, he gets about 10 CS up. This play, though, this was the one that actually surprised me more. This was just very disrespectful by T1. Ignite was back up. The wave was frozen against him. They didn't have jungle hover. So the all-in is just going to kill them. But this is actually where you see why the Lucian Nami could actually be a strong matchup here. This is what they expected to happen. It's just it doesn't happen at level 1.
Yeah, and I feel like as well, they weren't really facilitated the same way we expected. Like, we thought they'd get more resources from jungling, shadowing as well, specifically going back to the play Jett was just talking about. They were down a longsword as well when they moved up, and it seemed like Saigon Buffaloes was actually the team who was applying most pressure here, while the rest of T1 were kind of chilling on the top side of the map, waiting to that mid-game spike where they really just came across with their ultimate, specifically on the Vi pick and TF, where you really just start accelerating at skirmishes.
I mean, you could feel that the moment T1 started moving around the map and started coordinating the TF and the Vi, they completely took over the game. And like, the game went to expectation.
Interestingly enough, yeah, I think it was a good game 1.
Yes.
I'm going to talk a lot about teams that prioritize first Herald or teams that prioritize first Dragon, and I think like T1's a really interesting example of how the game could potentially be changing. Like, they were 42-8 in game score, and they only got first Dragon in 55% of their games, which when you're considering you're winning 90% of your games, to only get first Drake that often shows there's a huge priority elsewhere. They did get first Herald on this game. They did obviously give up first blood in that matchup because I think they just overplayed their hand bottom lane. But once they got the Herald, the game was relatively close, 20-minute Baron, and they ran it home.
It goes down to the way that teams, kind of differentiates between what they prioritize ones, as you said there. But T1 is the kind of team that also likes to accelerate their laners. Yes, they get a lot of their gold through kills and these skirmishes as well, but they also get it through sheer empowerment of their laning because they have exceptional laners on all of T1. So when you finally start prioritizing Herald, you get that plating in, and you all of a sudden have a laner who's 1k ahead of their opponent. Well, they completely just take over that matchup.
I mean, they really did. Let's briefly zoom out. Can I ask production to bring up that post-game breakdown once again for me? And let's just look at the champions on the left-hand side, because game 1, I'm not going to draw gigantic conclusions, right? But the Vi early on, Lucian Nami not hugely surprising. That the Wukong, I think Wolf was saying from the caster desk, like he's expecting to see more of that. I mean, what do you make of this?
I mean, Wukong was actually buffed, so I can see that maybe being a jungle pick in the future. It's not the fastest clearer. The Vi one is the one that actually had us kind of talking. I think there's a chance he just wanted to play Vi. Because it's the first stage. T1 is a runaway in this group. Even if they drop a game, they'll be completely fine. There is a nice synergy with TF Vi that we saw in this game, that once you're 6, gold card, plus 2 hard Vi CCs, and then later on when you can Everfrost, like, it is an easy kill lane, but it actually has very little pressure early on, which T1 can get away with in this matchup.
That's what I mean, and the way I kind of see the Vi pick here is kind of just like Nocturne Light, especially with TF coming through as well, in the sense that it's like, you're not stopping your cross division coming through, but you're jumping on the back line, and then playing it with Twisted Fate is kind of just like, when we hit level 6, we win skirmishes, and specifically on the top side as well. Like, Seos did take over on the Gwen as well, and the game even came down to him just running through bot and ending.
If Vi is Nocturne Light, does that make Wukong Diana Light? I don't need an answer to that.
Wukong is AD Diana.
Oh, there we go, okay.
And Vi is just hard CC Nocturne.
Oh, hard CC Nocturne, okay.
This is different.
I like this. I like this. I like to add these tags.
Nocturne.
I'm learning. Okay, I'm learning. Let's see if we see Nocturne a little bit later today. Now, I want to move us along to the next matchup in the group, because last year, Detonation FocusMe made history as the very first LJL team to make it to the world's group stage. Now, today, they return once more to the international stage, taking on the newcomers Ace from LATAM. Now, these teams, I think, could not be more diametrically opposed when it comes to both experience, success, tenure, because DFM have won 7 out of the 8 past LJL seasons. They are the most dominant team to come out of Japan. And I think in particular, this spring, they popped off.
They are ridiculously dominant. When I know that LJL is at an international tournament, I just expect that it's going to be DFM. And their coaches talked about this a little bit. Some of their players have talked about this. They don't necessarily practice against the LJL. They play in Korean solo queue. Because of their geographical location, they can scrim LCK teams, they can scrim LPL teams, they can scrim PCS teams, so they can get a wide variety of practice to continue to enhance their level. Because normally, you have this glass ceiling in your region of how good your competition is, but what DFM has been able to do, partially because of their reputation, is bypass that glass ceiling and continue to improve.
Yeah, you know, and I really like that the matchup that we start out with from DFM is up against LATAM here, because I was speaking to some of the LJL guys as well, and they're saying, you know, this is actually a historical matchup between these regions who actually have a kind of friendly matchup between each other. A lot of their players go back and forth in between the teams here, and you know, back in 2019, Isros, the LA team, that was the team that knocked out DFM. Then later, when it came down to the likes of Inf, they traded 1-on-1 in group stages with DetonatioN FocusMe as well. So quite often, there is small things that these teams will do against each other.
Yeah, and really quickly, we talked about Poppy in the pre-show. Look for Steel's Poppy. They have 100%. A huge prio on Poppy. It's hypothesized it's also a flex pick, even though they didn't play Poppy elsewhere than the jungle early on, or at least in the spring split. But that'll be something new to see.
I'm very excited to see this, Poppy. I know, of course, with a lot of changes, you're coming into the tournament on the patch 12.8. That is one of the picks we're looking out for. What are the players we're looking out for? Ebby. I think, Jett, you in particular were praising his performance and the impact that he has on the international stage.
I mean, I believe he's just a world-class player. He does consistently get to showcase his skills on the world stage, too. I'm shocked he hasn't moved to a major region in the past 5 years, because this guy is extremely good. He, generally speaking, very strong laning phase, has more of a bruiser type play style in team fights. Actually, no Ornn at all this split, but plus 890 gold, plus 10 CS at 10 in his laning phase. And then the whole team is also just dominant in team fights.
And if you're not familiar with Epi, he'll always throw that one. Thumbs up whenever he's in front of the camera. And yeah, I mean, the champions we really know him for is the likes of Nah. Even Urgot is a champion that he will bring out and make work as well with press the attack. So he likes to take the dominance for himself. And I fully agree with Jett when he's saying he's a world-class top laner, because he has been.
And look at the stats from his regional league. Highest damage per minute, highest CSD of 14, highest goal difference of 14. I mean, he's absolutely smashing the local competition today. He'll need to stare down a Team Ace. Now, this is an organization, I love the thumbs up, by the way. That was literally just a collection of thumbs up from Evie. Thank you for that once again. I want to turn our attention to their opponent. I actually cannot believe that's still going. We haven't seen that footage yet. Their opponent's Team Ace, the organization, entered the LLA on a 40-game win streak. Then the roster changed and adapted. They ended up winning their very first season. And Team Ace come into this with a lot to prove.
Yeah.
But obviously coming up against DFM, looking at the history, looking at the success, it is a difficult first game in the group.
Yeah, I really assume so as well. And I feel like they have different stylistics as well. Yes, there is a friendly rivalry between the teams and the players swap every now and then. But still, they have developed different styles throughout the region, where this team is way more slow-paced as well. They like to be the team that kind of takes care of the objective slowly. They're all about the turret taking. They're all about stacking up these drakes. So they have a different philosophy as the one you were mentioning as well, Jett. So I think this team will probably be a little bit more of a slower team to pay attention to.
Absolutely. And I think this was not the dominant team from the region. A lot of people were expecting, if you say 2 months ago, Rainbow 7 to be that team, because they only dropped one match in the regular season. But Aze was able to kind of fight their way through the second half of the split as well into the playoffs.
Yeah, and you can see it here. Like, you take a look at the DetonatioN FocusMe, their stats. They're so fast-paced as well in the way they do things, right? First blood, 69% but as the first one. That's absolutely incredible in their games. They like to just go through the early games and absolutely dominate them. Once again, there's a big skill discrepancy between DetonatioN FocusMe and the rest of LGL, but I do expect this game to be a little bit of a mismatch, where from the side of Team Ace, they'll have to stabilize all the pressure that DetonatioN FocusMe excels at in the early game.
Yeah, so stylistically, like big picture, I'm actually really interested to see what type of game we see from the top teams in the world at this MSI, because we just had T1, who is a first Herald team that deprioritizes Dragon. But like, Dragon Soul is still a very real win condition. It's just, I think the top teams don't rely on Dragon stacking to win. They instead rely on gold leads and team fighting. Aze is a team that I think, and I think this is actually like a good almost training wheel to winning League of Legends is like, let's get an early advantage and let's get the security of Drakes. And if you're that much better than your opponent, your Dragon Soul can be a win condition. So that's actually what Aze does a lot of times. 63% of first Dragon, which was first in their region, and only 49% of the time do they get the first Herald, whereas DFM, 76% of the time they get first Herald. And we just talked about how dominant they are. Like, if they wanted to get first Dragon, they would be getting first Dragon 80% of games.
100%.
But they only do it in 45% of games, right? So literally, they're just, instead of investing resources in getting the first Dragon, which gives very small combat power, they're getting a gold lead, getting Herald, and usually using it for Evie so he can take over the game.
So we had quick stats. We got Jett here with the stats.
Oh, Jett stats originated
Jett
them, by
stats
the
was
way.
before.
My Jett stats did it first. Also,
Okay,
just history lesson for the young man.
I opened the can of worms I was not prepared for.
Jett stats has always been meaningful, impactful, valuable, and I needed to undercut him. So I made the mockumentary of Jack stats, as you were, which is where quick stats comes from. But I do think I want to expand a little bit just on this, not only stylistic mismatch, I do think that, again, when you look at experience, when you look at presence on the international stage, the fact they're playing in front of the arena, the crowds, etc., I think Detonation FocusMe will be the favorites in this game, right? A lot of things point towards that. Then add on to the fact what we just saw Saigon Buffalons do in the early game coming up against T1. T1 picked up the Herald, they managed to use the gold, they managed to accelerate the game in the mid-game. So all of these things added up together, Team Ace really have to surprise or really have to change things up from what they did locally to what they're going to do now at MSI.
That's the thing, they're the outlier in this group. Every team in this group with T1, with Saigon Buffaloes and Detonation FocusMe in their region is known for a fast-paced early game. Whereas the team from Ace now is the only one who kind of takes it a little bit slower. And I think if you want to hone in on a little bit of how they actually do it is that you need your AD carry ahead, right? If you fall behind in the pressure, you don't really have too much to play for. You have 5kid on the roster, and funnily enough, 5kid on Team Ace used to play with the support of Harp that's now Detonation FocusMe. So there's some rivalry in the bot lane as well. They know each other, but once again, stylistically speaking, there's so many threats that Team Ace will have to stabilize and match up against when they play against Team Detonation FocusMe.
It's going to be very, very difficult. We just saw a glimpse there of the players that are just about set up on stage. And I think we're going to be able to head over to the casters in just a moment if my producers will give me the thumbs up for that one. Let's find out whether or not Team Ace can surprise everybody and withstand the pressure that DFM will throw at them. And it's one of the most experienced lineups at MSI, taking on those newcomers, Team Ace. Let's see what the new blood from LATAM are made of.
Thank you, Quickshot and Jett, and of course Guldborg there on the desk. We are getting into the second match of the day. It is going to be, of course, Team Ace up against Detonation FocusMe. What are your thoughts about this one going into this one?
I think it's going to be very similar to our last game in terms of action, early game kills. Both of these teams very aggressive. And just generally speaking, Team Ace is a very aggressive team. DFM, a lot of those stats we had in terms of their early game dominance, I think comes from the fact that they are a pretty aggressive team themselves, but also, as was mentioned, an extremely dominant team in their region. So their stats always really look very good. I think this definitely does favor Detonation FocusMe. I think they have overall the stronger roster on paper. But we will see. We've seen a lot of surprises in these early MSI group stages in the past. And I think this is going to be a bloody one, as we've seen also many times in the past of the early first weeks of MSI. It gets crazy, and it's a matchup that's difficult to predict. I really do like Aze's roster that they put together, picking up 5kid and Lonely from Korea. And it's a pretty strong team overall when you think about its history. And it's very unusual to see Korean imports outside of regions like North America and Europe. But, seeing it here in Latin America is awesome as well.
Yeah, it's going to be really cool to see. You were talking about Lonely as well, a guy that used to play for Sandbox when they were just Sandbox Gaming back in 2020. Was there for about 5 months. I think he played one split. Mixed results, but I'm curious to see how he has developed over his time over here in the LLA and how he will mesh with this roster over here. Definitely a fun one to watch. I think this one could set the tone for the rest of the group and, see who's going to be one of the stronger teams to potentially give T1 a shot at their money a little bit later on.
Yeah, I do agree. And it's going to be so exciting to see where DFM's power level is on this international stage because Yutapon, is a player who we talk about all the time. There he is on camera here, as a player who has so much experience, more than basically anybody but FLICKR in these types of international events. And He's going to be the leader who has to pull this team together. Obviously, he, Steel, and Evie have played together for so many years. They know each other very well. And the newer imports to the roster, you know, after Arya left, Yaharong and Harp here are going to have to pick up where they left off. And I think that based on what we've seen in the LJL and the dominance they showed in their own region, they've had enough time to kind of figure it out. And I think that DFM could be somewhat of a dark horse in this group potentially, as they have been in the past.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I do feel like we say that quite often about the same. They do so well in their own region that, you know, we expect a lot out of them on the international stage, and maybe they can get that started off here. But it looks like we are ready to jump into pick ban. And, you know, we already saw one of the games. I'm not sure if that's really going to be what the meta is, though, for the rest of MSI.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the Vi is going to be very
Viable?
common. Yeah, I was like, should I
Sorry.
say it? You said it. I
Yeah.
appreciate that you were the one who took the bullet for that one. But
Yeah.
the bans we see here, obviously, Yaharong's LeBlanc, very strong. The Poppy that was already discussed on the desk, a very, very common pick for Steel. Steel's champion pool actually very small in terms of the champions he's played in the LJL. I mentioned the Wukong. We're going to see a lot more of it. First pick priority here for Aze this early on in the draft. It's just another sign that we're going to be seeing a lot more of this guy.
Yeah, I mean, he's just able to set up so much nowadays with some of the changes that he did receive, so definitely will be seeing him a lot. In terms of Steel, you know, you were already talking about him a little bit. Maybe we'll see a Hecarim, maybe we'll see a Graves. I was going to say Nocturne, as there is the big thumbs up. Thank you, Evie, for that pick.
Another one for the highlight reel.
Yeah. One thing we were talking about for DFM is actually it feels like a team that has emulated a lot from actually Damo and Kia. So it'll be interesting to see, you know, can Steel kind of emulate the Canyon Graves that we have seen many times in the past.
Yeah, and I think the Lucian could potentially be a flex pick in a draft like this, although with the Graves pick this early, you don't have a lot of CC to set there in the mid lane, but you know, we'll see what he ends up pairing it with. I think this Renata pick does lean more towards going to the bottom side here. We see the Samira is picked up early here. Samira plus Wukong is a combo you don't want to face in the mid game, especially if Aze get an early lead. Immortal Shield Bow plus the Wukong knockup makes for a very fiery team fight. Combo that, of course, with the Nautilus. And Aze already looking to be scrappy on you know, Drake's 2 and 3, those Rift Herald fights. Very strong team fighting composition that doesn't have the same late game oomph as a lot of other AD carries. So we'll see how this one pans out.
You know, they were talking about on the desk how Wukong is a little bit like Diana, you know, just kind of goes in, really sets up the team fight. And we saw that in game number 1 from Saigon Buffalo, a pretty similar composition, and already Aze is going down that path. So let's see where we're going to get some more of these bans. We do have the Vex ban coming out here. Definitely something that could be popular. We already do have the Ahri ban very early on from the side of DFM as well.
Yeah. And Gangplank taken away here. Don't want to be dealing with that, especially in terms of scaling problems you could run into later on in the game. Gangplank is just so strong right now. Just ask anyone about it, or ask anyone who plays top lane, regardless of elo, and they're going to tell you they've run into their fair share of Gangplanks right now in this meta on this patch. But it's definitely one way to stop DFM from having a little bit more stability towards the later parts of the game. And it can really slow, the Cannon Barrage could, you know, slow obviously what Aze are building here, and can really mess up some of those mid-game team fights too. So I do like the ban. Gnar will be the answer here. Is you're thinking about all the combos, all the ways you can set up for that big Samira ultimate, and Gnar is one of those great tools, so do really appreciate that ban on DFM's side.
Yeah, definitely something that Gangplank can take advantage of as well. So when you see the Gangplank ban, it's like, well, let's potentially take that away in case they do want to play that here. TF will be taken off the board. We saw that first picked by T1 in game number 1. And it did make it all the way to the second phase of bans here, but they do take that away. And the Syndra is going to be the choice now for Yaharong in the mid lane.
Yeah, it's a pick that he's played a lot over his career in the LCK as well. Will be the, looks like, the answer from Alone to be the Zoe here. And there's so much setup, there's so much CC in Aze's team comp. It's going to give him a lot more range as well. And it's a pretty decent matchup, obviously, into the Syndra. Flipping it over, though, will be the Rumble to come through instead, feeling like a bit of a throwback here in this one, and I like the pressure you can bring on, and you layer that damage into the ultimate coming through from Samira and all the CC you've already got in this composition.
Exactly.
This is gonna get scrappy.
It's layers on layers, right? You roll out the red carpet, a good old Wukong runs down it, and Samira brings it in as well. Now the Viktor is going to be the follow-up. Definitely another champ that, you know, I guess in terms of the composition, he can throw out a Chaos Storm and say, well, you know, maybe I'll go into my Zonias, maybe I'll die, but I'll do a lot of burst damage as well. It is a hefty amount of magic damage with the Rumble and the Viktor, but definitely, again, focus on just wombo comboing in some of these fights.
I personally would have rather seen the Viktor pick here for DFM as kind of a late game shoring up of the damage, because yes, they do have the Graves damage later on, but Lucian is going to fall off significantly. But what they're going to do instead is actually take this Ornn pick, which is safe into a lot of flexing we could have potentially seen in this draft as well, where these picks are going to go. Very safe weak side you could take. You put your focus on mid and the bottom side of the map. The Ornn is going to make your picks a lot stronger in the late game because of his ornament upgrades later on. But the Syndra is going to set up for big damage. There's a lot of CC here for DFM between the Call of the Forge God and the Scatter of the Weak. Plus, of course, the Renata ult that's going to make this very difficult to run into. And I think that is going to be, in the mid-game, the biggest problem for Aze. Similar to Keриa's tidal waves we saw in the previous game, you want to run in with this Wukong composition. You want to look for the engage with the Nautilus, but everybody gets berserked, and then your entire team fight is ruined. You need that Viktor damage follow-up. You need that ult coming through from the Rumble as well once your initial engage kind of goes awry.
Yeah, definitely can be a little bit ham-fisted from the side of Team Aze, but we've seen that work before. I think that, though, DFM have brought a healthy amount of disengage and ways to survive alongside of a great amount of scaling damage as the game goes along, at least in the Graves, so that is one thing. As it does look like the pick ban has ended. We should be getting into this game in just a moment.
Yeah, I am excited to see Rumble back. Rumble, one of those picks that seems always just kind of creep in these international tournaments, especially in the early parts. And it's a champion that can be so potent in games like this that get scrappy and where it's not clear who has a very strong advantage going into mid-games. Rumble's just so good at saying, that objective is mine. I put down my ultimate and you can't get anywhere near it. So much zone control. And it's just one of my favorite champions to cast, to be honest with you, Valdes. So I'm glad he's back, at least in this game.
Yes, thank you for being honest with me, Wolf.
I would never lie to you.
Yeah. Rumble's pretty fun. I'm a big fan. Yeah, this is going to be interesting. I'm curious to see how the Viktor is going to work alongside of all this hard engage. Definitely gives you a little bit of an out as the game does come along. You know, it has that nice amount of scaling damage. We'll see where he can do what Alones can do. Kind of funny, some of the names on the side of Team Aze, right? We have Lonely, but we also have Alone, so I don't know. Have you ever been so lonely that you were alone for a long period of time?
He's been alone. Well, we'll see how much jungle proximity we see for these two solo laners this game.
Also, you know, Five Kid from Korea, we actually had a bit of an issue where the word for five in Korean is O, right? Yeah. So we were like, is he O Kid? Is he Five Kid?
And some people are like, is he Skid?
Yeah, is he Skid? You know? What is his name? We have landed on Five Kid.
Yeah.
That is what we will call him.
To contextualize also the relationship between Five Kid and Harp, they did play together on KT Rolster's Academy team, as well as, of course, a few games of LCK, but not part of the main roster. Did end up moving away to the LLAs. An invade happens here, and this is just really annoying to deal with. This Dimitry will just move to the Wolves instead.
It's actually going to be pretty big, as we do have some nice CC onto Harp. As, yeah, with the action kind of settling here. Oh no, they're still going in. They're still actually getting onto that one, but the spike comes in. Dimitri's level 2, and now Steel and Evie in a bit of trouble. Not able to land that smite, as he will have to smite on the blue up, trying to survive here. Gets that dash away once again, and will flash to get to safety. Do Aze have the damage to actually take anyone out? Looks like the answer will actually be no.
No, but the advantages gained here are pretty real, because Steel obviously had the smite there, is very low, is going to have to now go back and have a very delayed start to his jungle. If Dimitry hits level 2 faster, he's going to have a free blue buff here uncontested now. And, you know, the health that was taken, the damage that Evie had taken there and sustained is going to make that early level 1 of the laning phase very frustrating. You can see Lonely already hits 2 faster. And Dimitry gonna go ahead and start this Gromp. Has a really, really nice lead. I mean, notice where Steel is right now. He's actually gone over to the right side of the jungle, is several camps behind. And DFM didn't have to play this aggressively, but really wanted to actually stop this Wukong in its tracks. The clear that Wukong obviously has can be very frustrating to play against, can be so strong in the mid game, but it actually backfires. And now, in fact, Wukong has a massive advantage, which is exactly the opposite of what was intended here for DFM.
You can see Seal finally kills a camp. It is the blue buff, as he wasn't able to do anything in his own red buff jungle. And he will be a very sad Graves. Now, Graves will be faster at clearing, but that early start is going to be very nice for Dimitry, as you did mention. Yeah, I'm just kind of going to be doing this now for the next long while, and we might not see Steel for a very long while, whereas Dimitry definitely will have some opportunities to get stuff done. I mean, at least in the bottom lane, I'd say. There's not a huge amount of gank assist with the Viktor, with the Rumble. But we will have to see if he can make any plays down towards the bottom side of the map.
Yeah, you know, post 6 obviously going to be a lot stronger. Is Heavy just going to get the knock up here to push Lonely back. Be aggressive trading there.
Yeah.
I wanted to point out something that we've seen a small trend so far is that with the nerfs to some of our more traditional and more common AD carries like late game scaling, Jinx, and Aphelios, we have seen more early to mid game focused AD carries from everyone basically so far. Obviously, Tristana can be strong in the early game and in the late parts. Just hold that thought. Alone.
Alone, he's on in the smoke cloud. He is not going to be able to get out of this one. The flash comes in. One more auto, and Yaharong will take him out. Not the cleanest kill, but they get the job done. As you can see, that Steel actually is active early on in this game.
Yeah, very impressive, or important rather, start here for DFM after the jungle went so awry. It's just, I don't think a trade you want to take Dimitry is very far away. And this is the problem, of course, once you miss your engage like that, you're going to take a lot of that Lucian damage back. And Steel's up here.
Yeah, look at this. I mean, we don't have any flash now, and Steel is just making so much work happen. Not sure he's not going to be able to get this kill, though, as Evie not really able to set up for that one. As we will have, the Grasp will come in there, and 5kid will go down and straight. Gets a little bit too close to the sun, and Yutapon will easily scoop another kill. That's 2 kills now for the bottom lane of DFM.
And this is what I was talking about. You don't want to trade like that in this lane. If you don't actually have enough damage to secure the kill, the Lucian will, with his passive, trade back so much damage in the early game. He's hitting you repeatedly, and then suddenly, DFM's bot duo has kill pressure to push back onto you, and you can see that they just kind of got destroyed there. Before 5kid has his ultimate available, you're not going to be able to turn around like this. So going back to, of course, this earlier moment here, the vision around the bottom side of the map here is just Alone has nothing. They pinged it, but he has no idea. I mean, he's clearly just focused on the laning here. Yaharong's low mana, trying to get advantages there. And as you mentioned, it wasn't the cleanest kill here for Yaharong, but he gets it done in the end. And just notice how much abuse you're going to take with Samira Nautilus in a lane like this. When you don't have the ability to hook, you don't have the rolling pressure, you just die straight up.
Yeah, great play from Harp. You know, just waits out the block. He's able to get the handshake in, and just very well played mechanically. You know, they're able to get the 2v2, which is very nice to see. As
Evie is struggling up here after the early game. That's just how this matchup is going to go.
Yeah, note also that he went for Grasp here in this lane. You know, a couple of technically melee champions, he should be able to proc it quite a lot, but it does mean that he doesn't have really like the Ignite that he can switch to with that Unseal spellbook we see very often. He doesn't have a smite for later on, you know, stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, he's not able to help himself out a little bit in some of these skirmishes.
Honestly, even with the exhaust he could pick up against this composition could be so great into the Samira, into the Wukong. So a bit of a surprising pick. But either way, you know, he's struggling in this laning phase. Isn't going to be able to get as much value out of it with how things have gone so far. And, you know, Rift Herald is going to be the first team fight focused objective here for these two teams. Samira obviously going to be so strong in the early levels with the Wukong. If they can hit 6 before that, and they're on track to do so. Tense moment here as the vision is shown. You can see there's just not a whole lot of it.
Yeah. Seemed like DFM pretty aware of what was going on down here in the bottom side. And so they will just back away from it. Don't want to get caught out. Seal has been very active in this game. I've been loving what he's been able to hold in the early game. As now Straight is taking a huge amount of free damage, and he's just going to die. Now 5kid doesn't have any way to save himself. Seal already used that block, and that's just a double kill into the hands of Yutapon. They are now stomping this bottom lane.
Yeah, and this is, you know, again, somewhat unforced errors here, unfortunately, for the bot duo for Aze, and they've given so much power to Yutapon now on a pick that is extremely powerful when fed like this, and it's not going to be, like, basically the laning phase is over for 5kid now. He is just never going to have kill pressure. He is just always going to be under threat. This is going to be a free dragon that comes as a bonus to these kills here on the bottom side. I think just a lack of respect to how much damage Yutapon can put on. With this Lucian pick in the early game is really the name of the game here. Like, Aze just disrespecting it quite a bit. As in terms of the top prio here, it is going to make it a little bit tougher for DFM to rotate over, to take Rift Herald priority. They did take the Drake, but Aze still, with the timing of the back here for Alone in the mid lane and their lack of control bottom side, just don't have enough control to start this one up early. There's a ward on this, so this is not a secret, and knows the rotations coming over. You see Harp on his way over here.
Yeah. I mean, teleport's coming out, like, they know this 100%. I think Dimitri's just hoping that maybe he can sneak this one away, but it's not really going to happen, as Lonely, you know, he does have some prio from the top side, so maybe he's banking on that as well. But as a team, you can see now DFM in position, ready to fight over this one. Dimitry all alone here, does have the flash, and he is just going to hop over the wall. But a little bit of a thank you for the leash, says DFM. You know, they will just eventually get the kill onto this one. Looks like the smite not quite ready for steal, but it doesn't matter because they just take it away.
Yeah, and I think for Aze, this is a moment where, you know, we as casters, we have the bird's eye view, we can see everything. It feels almost foolish to try to start this Rift Herald. But what other choice do they really have in a situation like this where they have some top prio, they want to try to utilize that? The bottom lane is over. Like, you didn't even have level 6 for this fight because 5kid was removed. He's not going to be able to Inferno trigger here and look for that powerful team fight with Wukong. So they do have to give this up when it's contested from DFM. And if DFM was a little bit slow on the drop, maybe you steal this way, maybe you get lucky. But, you know, obviously, from what we can see and what we know, it was not a game state where they could realistically take the Herald, but they tried to do something here with the steps that they have. Take risks when you're behind. You've got to do something with this top prio, but the lead that Lonely has is going to diminish here over time, and they're just not able to, unfortunately, utilize it at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing you can say is that 5kid was able to get some of that farm down on the bottom side, but he's Samira, you know, he was alone, he got a lot of solo XP while that was going on. Got one plate, but still very behind in this one, as DFM now clearing out some vision already, just hanging around the mid lane. It almost feels like they want to end this laning phase right now with the Rift Herald and say, okay, let's try to get a bunch of plates, you know, but not going to drop it down just yet in the mid lane, just trying to put on as much map pressure first.
Yeah, DFM has had so much control of vision. We talked about the 2 wards they had around the Dragon earlier. Aze just didn't have any vision control there whatsoever. They were kind of walking through the river in the dark, and now DFM is just continuing to try to push deep wards through. They don't want there to be any mystery about where the support is, where the jungler is, while they're trying to push those advantages and get that Rift Herald drop for maximum value. Because as you mentioned, you could put it mid lane, you could put it bottom lane, you really have both options. Yutapon's in a position where he doesn't really need any help or extra gold because he's 3-0-1, and you know, he's just going to take this opportunity to take a free back. And DFM are just kind of coasting with this lead against the team composition of Aze. Had they found success in this early game, had they not had that poor 2v2 twice on the bottom side of the map, they could be looking to contest vision and look for these objectives themselves. Now they just kind of have to sit back and hope for that, you know, Rumble scaling in later team fights, wait for that Viktor to come online, because it's not going to be the scrappy Inferno trigger Wukong ult fights in the mid game that they were hoping for.
Yeah, we did get that Massacre Mythic purchase out here from Yutapon. He did get the Gale Force at 11 minutes into the game. So all of those kills and all that gold just being piled into him to pick up that early Mythic. Really enjoying himself in this one. As Dimitry, you can see he's looking for stuff. I mean, this is what the Wukong wants to do. But as I mentioned before, I mean, Yaharong Syndra, he can just take this at range. He never has to be in danger. He doesn't have to face check unless he has lane control. And he's never going to put himself into a position where a Viktor with really no gank assist is ever going to be able to take him down.
So I want to point out something too here, Valdes, as in terms of Steel's build, we see this actually quite often in Korea, the Umbral Glaive start for Graves, and this is very common when your team has a lead, because you have the lethality stats, of course, that it gives you, and you can pick people off, you could be oppressive, you could be so aggressive around early team fights. It also means you get more vision control, and it makes it so difficult for Aze who have no map control whatsoever to play the game or take any sort of objectives, or even look to control their own jungle.
Yeah. And this is a little bit of what we were expecting, you know, the follow-up to that early lead that DFM were able to pick up. They're going to drop it down to the bottom side just to make sure they get the first turret blood, and they will hand all of that gold over to Yutapon as well. Very delicious.
And it also sets up for this Drake. the timing of this is perfect. Drake spawns in 15 seconds. Is going to be that Mountain Drake to be the second for them. They have complete prio. Notice the deep warding here, several control wards. And now they're just going to start putting the pressure on in the mid lane to guarantee prio here, taking more jungle camps away from Dimitry. Alone to way far forward here.
Yeah, Scout of the Week misses, so he will survive. But, you know, it's one of those games where, yes, you're the Viktor, you can wave clear, but DFM are just going to look to put on as much pressure onto these turret plates early on as possible. They will take a second one, and they're grouped up for the Dragon, as you were talking about, looking to stack those Drakes.
Yeah, and you know that there's no flank coming because you killed the bottom turret. You have full control there. You have 2 control wards bottom of the pit, and to the left of the Drake pit, you were just there. You know everything. There's no unknowns here for DFM. And when you have a lead like this with a composition like what they're running, you can try to just continually fight and snowball with your Lucian pick, or you could just control the map and take every objective and force Aze out of the game by kind of out-grinding the important objectives around the map, and that's going to be the safer way that DFM play this out.
Yeah, we do see Lonely. He picks up 2 plates on the top side. Heavy, you know, he's just hanging out. You know, he's enjoying his time. He's like, yeah, my team's doing really well. I'm Ornn. Let me just sit here and get some levels and try to survive. Doesn't matter that I'm that far behind. Whatever. You know, my team will be able to carry me through this one, and then I will give them items later on.
Yeah,
in the
exactly.
game and just hang out.
Evie is basically a second shopkeeper who works for DFM in this game, and he is a long-range engage tool.
He's much more friendly than Boris, I find, actually.
Yeah.
Ornn is he's a really nice guy.
He's very friendly.
Happy he's with us, yeah.
This could be, this is again where the power of the Umbral Glaive comes in through here for Steel. He could push far forward like this and start to threaten dives on the turret. And they have, because of this Syndra pick, so much ability to actually, from long range, just look for an explosive pick if there's not some respect. And if Aze respects you, you get a turret.
Oh, no. Not like this.
Not like this.
Not like this, Lonely. He does have the ult coming in down onto Lonely. Lonely did already flash. The damage should be there, but not quite, actually. I mean, not able to get that kill down as now the Wukong comes in. Dimitry able to take out one. The Berserk comes in, though, and they will be able to turn it onto Alone. He was a little bit out of position by himself in the river, so at least DFM are able to trade one back. And
they do trade one back, but again, it's on to the champion that is going to be fine, you know, in every case here. This is a bit overextended from Yaharong.
Yeah, nice little juke there from Dimitry as well, able to get out of the Scout of the Week. As now the depth chart does come in. Yaharong just had no idea that Dimitry had stuck around, and with a teleport and the guys coming up the river, he will be punished for his maneuver.
Yeah, that was very greedy from Yaharong, but based on what he had seen, he thought that Aze were having a back timing there, and he was just going to try to get extra value on the top side. The reality is that he's picked and punished, and now this is second Rift Herald going over to Aze here, so they're going to get a large amount of success from this, and there wasn't anything cross-map that DFM got while all that pressure was topside to kill Yaharong.
They really just love bullying Alones here, it feels like, as we will have Gravity Field come down, and Harp will just have to back out of this one.
In terms of late game scaling, there is the effect that we're going to have with these 2 massive AP late game champions, the Rumble and the Viktor, who can do so much damage later on. So those are the ones you want to bully. Those are the ones you don't want to let sit back and farm. I notice that is exactly what they have been doing, because they're going to be the somewhat of an insurance policy here for Aze. So DFM trying to punish them here as best as possible. Unfortunately, to limited success here through the mid game. And if a Viktor just gets to sit back and farm like this, in terms of damage output later on, he will outdo Syndra in every scenario. So it's really going to be about good team fight setups here. This is Lonely, of course, the catch onto him, so to speak, but the turnaround was really nice. They just don't quite have enough damage here.
Yeah. I mean, you think about it, Lonely is pretty far ahead. He's got those 2 extra levels, so he's very survivable, actually. And, you know, the Lethality Graves, he missed his end of the line. There's a lot of damage that he just wasn't able to put into Lonely. So with the flash, he's able to survive for so long. And it's not exactly what you would expect when he literally face checks the brush.
And yeah, and knows the vision here as well. Yaharong does check once here on bottom brush with this ward, but doesn't catch Dimitry. And as you mentioned, the sidestep is good. Yaharong is punished, leads to second Rift Herald. These are the types of small mistakes that could actually cost you a game like this because your composition's late game isn't as clean per se. Like, yes, you have the ornaments, but will that actually make a Syndra as strong as a Viktor? No, not actually. Especially when she's got, you know, the Everfrost build that she's going with here. That upgrade isn't going to be as significant, whereas Alone has Illudence. It is going to be building some Magic 10 later on, so I mean, there are serious concerns here for DFM. The lead is big, but it's not. We're not a secure DFM right now.
Yeah, it's very true. I mean, if you consider that eventually we might see a couple of Zhonya's, we have already a collector here for the Lucian, who is very far ahead, so I can understand it. But you also have the Graves that's going lethality, so, you know, some of these builds not really going to scale too well, and we will have to see if Aze can take advantage of that. You see, they are setting up here for the Cloud Drake. And this is going to be a curious fight because Aze still behind in this one.
Yeah, they still are. And this is
they take a fight?
If they win this fight, this is a massive turning point for them because all of that extra gold will really empower these scaling AP champions. I think use your Rift Herald to try to set up a fight, but you don't need to force anything here. DFM, they cannot just simply give this up, though. They need to continue that momentum, set up for Soul Point here with this Cloud Drake. This is going to be, I mean, this game is really teetering on the edge. And if Aze win this fight convincingly, DFM are in big trouble.
You can see the TP's coming in right in front of all of Aze. So Evie says hello on the Ornn. He's looking to get on in here with his chem tank. As Australia's now popped. That's a couple of items now that are going to be going down, and nobody will commit to the fight just yet.
Yep, and Evie's ultimate here is so critical when they do want to engage. Those positioning here is a nice spread for Aze.
Red carpet is down. They're trying to make room, and the smite comes down from the side of Dimitry. He's able to get that one, and DFM saying, nope. We're not going to commit over the Rumble Equalizer. You can have the one Cloud Drake.
That was a really patient game from both teams here. DFM going to try to turn this into a turret because they were grouped up for an objective they didn't fight for. But Alone has great wave clear here. Teammates are on the way back, and I don't know if they're actually going to be able to fully commit to this turret. Remember also, Lonely, it does have a flank angle here. They get the turret and back out immediately. Not going to look for anything further. But again, DFM, the crisis management of that Rift Herald drop and still contesting the Drake was good, but weren't able to set up for a fight. And you could start to see the composition waning significantly here, you know, as we press the 20-minute mark. And it's not a one game by any means. The 2,000 gold lead isn't going to be as significant in 5-10 minutes from now as it is now.
So you see Aze pretty confidently just pushing up through mid. Taking a look at some of the items, we actually do have Yaharong building towards that Void Staff. So far, we have a couple of Merc Treads, but nobody else is building any kind of magic resist. And, you know, I suppose Straight will be having some of that magic resist as the game does come along. But already with the Sork Pen boots, I wouldn't have even minded going for something like a Shadow Flame, something that could do a little bit more upfront damage, especially at this point in the game.
Yeah, the Dark Seal as well feels pretty optimistic. I mean, you're trying to get the most gold-efficient AP as you can right now if you're the Syndra here because, you know, you're not in a position where the leads that your team had early on a Lucian bottom haven't translated to you being able to get ahead. They've tried several times to kill Alone. He has died twice, but it didn't lead to Syndra picking up a lot of gold, being very oppressive on the map. So even with the Umbral Glaive and the deep vision that DFM has set up, I feel like Aze has really weathered the storm extremely well this game. You can see the gold lead here has stayed relatively the same for DFM across this game. They need to use this to get more permanent advantages, like a Baron if they could fight for that, or a Soul Point. They failed to do that last time. They give a second Cloud Drake over to Aze here, and then we're really starting to worry for DFM. We're like, okay, there's a possibility this game could go awry. Now we're starting to almost predict it if things don't change soon.
Yeah, absolutely. As we do see Evie coming around the back, maybe thinking about setting something up onto Lonely. As the teleport will come in here and Lonely will be knocked up. That might just be enough to set up the kill as the red carpet does come down and even a flash comes out of Lonely, but that is not going to be enough. So nice kill set up there from DFM.
Yeah, I think a bit of a puzzling flash there. Really nice set play knowing that Yaharong is going to be able to follow up CC here with the teleport that he has available. Really nice grab here. And these are the types of plays DFM have to be looking for. They have to be punishing. They cannot let Lonely just sit in the side lane and farm. He's got his Shadow Flame online. He is a force to be reckoned with in a 5v5. That's not where you want to face the Rumble when he's behind, you know, the front line and he's just setting up that damage. You want to isolate him, take him out, kill him, prevent him from farming. And they're successful at doing that this time.
Yeah, pretty good stuff. As you see, DFM, you know, they weren't worried about any kind of Baron rush from the side of Aze. Still too early on. You have a Samira on their side, and it's not quite enough damage to rush it down or anything like that, especially from behind in the gold where they're at here. As see both teams still hanging around. I mean, they both know that they got to set up for this Baron. They got to do something around this. But, yeah, I mean, the clock is ticking.
Lonely lost his flash in that last exchange. It's not too significant, but I appreciate that in this kind of game of chicken around Baron right now where DFM have vision, he just immediately straight up walks bottom lane and is starting to side lane. And you can see some good macro plays here from this Korean top laner coming through. He's trying to find cross-map plays. He knows he's calling DFM's bluff, basically. I have teleport, I've got my ultimate, I can come back in. Now DFM are actually going to pull the trigger.
Yeah, and you consider this team, they have excellent turn. You have the Berserk,
no vision.
You have the Ornn, you have the Syndra with the Scout of the Week. They have so many ways with their lead to turn onto this one. But Aze, they don't have vision. They're not comfortable to go in. They don't see it happening on time, and that will just be the free Baron given over to DFM.
You can see they were definitely aware of it, but there's just no recourse when you don't have vision. And like you said, the turn is so amazing. It's lethality Graves. The items advantage that DFM still currently hold is still relevant right now. And so, you know, they do push that bottom wave out, but don't get any permanent damage. Not able to take out an inner turret, start to threaten inhibitors. And had they been able to get vision or wrestle for control there, he did have the teleport. It doesn't happen. Now, DFM need to use this Baron to get permanent damage themselves, try to take out an inhibitor and further control their map, or further their control of the map, I should say.
Curious to see what DFM will do with this buff. Yaharong finally going to get his revenge up on the top side of the map. Not going to die this time. Will, in fact, take out the turret with his own Baron buff. That is the Red Bull Baron power play, by the way, that DFM are utilizing here in this one. And Aze, they say, well, there's going to be a Constellation Cloud Drake. Let's take that one. But it feels like the bleeding has finally began to set in here as DFM are really laying into them and taking as much of the map as possible.
Yeah, Notice Alone is pushing bottom, and so every time DFM group up to try to take these turrets out, they haven't been able to actually really do it very quickly, and so there are trade-offs here, you know? Again, that late-game victory is becoming more and more relevant every second he gets to spend in the side lane. They will get this turret, but it comes at a price.
Yeah, second turret does come down here. And DFM at a very strong point in the game. You know, the Syzygy even completed here for Steel, the upgrade of the Eclipse. Just a very strong Graves in this one and can really chunk anybody on the side of Team Aze. Nobody's really built too much armor. You see a couple of plated steel caps, and that's about it. You know, Nautilus is taking a couple of pieces, but everybody has to get damage, everybody else, I should say. And so we're forgoing Zhonya, stuff like this, but that just means that Yutapon and Seal are going to just be chunking people out.
They absolutely will. Okay, look at the position here for Evie is so good.
The Flash Berserk gonna get 3 of them, and Evie is just tanking everything up. Everybody else on the side of Team Aze just trying to survive as they will turn this one onto Lonely. He is going to go down, and the culling is safe for now. And there's the chunk damage that comes in. Nearly everybody on the side of Team Aze will be taken out. That is, in fact, going to be the ace and the teleport into the mid lane as DFM will look to take down game number 1 for them.
I really like the pivot in the draft here for Aze, trying to get some late game scaling. They knew their win condition. They were avoiding these types of fights, but eventually you will have to face the music. Setup here is very poor going to this fight. Evie has a nice angle, is able to get those knockups through. 1-1 team fight and a wipe at this stage of the game with the items that DFM have, and as you say, it's a teleport to mid to end the game.
That's just going to do it with the Baron. It should be enough. We do have Dimitry trying to make one final play, but a little bit sad at the end there. Straight says, well, how about me? Maybe I can get something going, but it is not going to happen. Big thumbs up from Evie. As DetonatioN FocusMe will take down their first game here in Group A, now sitting at 1-0.
There were some shaky moments through the mid game for DFM where it looked like, okay, they're not utilizing their lead as well as they could have, but the early game was oppressive. Remember, this is with a really rough start for Steel in the jungle, and they still were able to, through the 2v2s in the bottom side of the map, this Lucian pick, once again, really rearing its head in what can lead to such a nice tempo advantage. We saw the Emerald Glaives come out, their vision control was great, and despite some great farming there for those champions, the Rumble and the Viktor, that were hoping to go to a 35-minute, 40-minute game maybe and be relevant later, eventually they did have to face the music. They did have to look for that team fight. And they were caught out of position completely there, and the game ends. DFM definitely looking to be the stronger team here. I think it was pretty clear, pretty cut and dry in terms of their understanding of how to control from an early lead.
Yeah, pretty good showing from them. I think, you know, perhaps a little bit sleepy to start it off, but a very strong finish, as you did put it. So pretty good to see from Detonation FocusMe as well. So pretty fun game number 2. Of course, not going to be the end of what we do have for our casting. A very exciting follow-up game that we will be having here. Wolf, what do you think about G2 versus Order?
I am pretty excited for it. I think most people are favoring G2 going into that one, but I'm really excited for it. I finally get to cast G2 for the first time, so that's big hype for me. Before we jump to that, I guess there's another time where I'm like, okay, another Wukong loss. People may be judging it, like, oh, Wukong 0-2 so far. Still think is very strong. Let's still not judge it just yet. I'm gonna continue saying that until it starts winning, okay?
Yeah, you might be waiting a bit, but we'll have to wait and see. Guys, we're turning our attention towards Group C as the MSI 2019 champions G2 Esports take to the stage alongside LCO newcomers Order. Stay tuned, we'll be right back.
The world is watching. Get on board. Check the lanes. Pay attention to the best. Join the ranks. Be the challenger. All in for the trophy. This is for all senses. This is for all players. Buckle up. Take notes. MSI 2022. Driven by Mercedes EQ.